Let us know when you're ready. I'd like to call the Board of Light and Power July board meeting to order. Danielle, would you call the roll, please?
Director Crum?
Here.
Director Knoth is absent. Director Polyak?
Here.
Director Welling?
Here.
Chairperson Westbrook?
Here. Can I get a motion to excuse Director Knoth for personal matters?
Make the motion. Well, you got it, Todd.
Or make the motion, Mike. It's fine.
I got it.
Take your pick, Danielle.
Comments or discussion? Danielle, would you call the roll, please?
Crum?
Yes.
Polyak?
Yes.
Welling?
Yes.
Westbrook?
Yes. The next item is approval of tonight's meeting agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, second, discussion. Danielle, would you call the roll, please?
Crum?
Yes.
Polyak?
Yes.
Welling?
Yes.
Westbrook?
Yes. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the time to hear comments from our general public. We ask that each commenter provide their name and address and any affiliated organizations that they may be representing for the record. We respectfully ask that comments are kept to 3 minutes each. Austin's going to be our timekeeper. Any public comments?
My name is Jeffrey Miller. I live at 1120 South Harbor Drive. I want to applaud the BLP for moving forward to sponsor a solar array that would be installed directly in our community. This initiative came about through feedback that the BLP received from its customers, who are also their stakeholders and owners. I, however, strongly object to the financial plan that was devised to accompany it. As I understand it, the community solar garden will not be built unless a total of 33% of the project is pledged and paid for. That is 333 panels, which equates to $189 that needs to be in escrow with the BLP by December 15th. The onus should not be on the owners of the BLP to make their wants come to fruition. The BLP Board of Directors should direct staff to pledge or cover the initial threshold amount. The roughly $190,000 investment is a mere drop in the bucket, given the tens of millions of dollars in the BLP's current budget. I am also hoping that there is an aggressive sales and marketing scheme that will be unveiled and instituted, along with clever branding, like the I Love My BLP signs that were developed to challenge the change to the city charter a few years ago. Once the BLP has sold the remaining 667 solar panels to customers from all walks of life, companies, government agencies, churches, NGOs, and individuals, then the initial 333 panels that the BLP pledged can be transferred back to waiting, wanting customers at the same cost of $570, thus lessening the BLP obligation. Given the way the current program appears to be structured, the failure might be falsely used as a justification to pursue other load-generating options that are capital-intensive and not renewable, like the solar panels. It should not be incumbent for the collective owners of the BLP to have to pony up the money. The BLP Board of Directors should lead the way with a financial commitment to and for the community. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Groucho Marx.
Jeffrey. Gotcha. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening?
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion.
Yeah, there's a couple things, being that it is the end of the fiscal year, I thought it would make a sense, and we got a kind of a light agenda to kind of take some time to go through some of the KPIs and kind of point out some of the things that kind of stuck out to me as I'm looking at them. So as we go through reliability, obviously, we've had a pretty good year thus far. So I'm going to knock on wood because I hate jinxing ourselves, but we're doing good there. So I don't think we need to spend a lot of time there. One that does stick out to me as number 2 is the power supply. So overall, throughout the year, we ended up, if you look at the balance sheets and our sales, up on sales. But if you look at about January, halfway through the year, you see the blue line and the orange line there kind of flopped. The blue line is actually what our sales were, or system input, not sales, but system input. And the orange line is what we had budgeted, or what we thought we were going to have to purchase to put into the system. Well, July, you can see we start out was really high, which we can explain it was really warm weather. And if you run across there until January, you'll see we're basically, the blue line is above the orange line, which makes sense. We were a little above budget in our sales, which we kind of expected because we knew through some of our industrial customers that they were going to have some shift in their operations, and we'd expected some of their sales to go down. Throughout the year, what's kept us so close to that, from January on, you can see the blue and the orange line flopped, meaning that we are buying less power than we thought we were going to need. What does that mean? That means our sales are lower than we would expect as well, because power in is equal to power out, right? So I asked Eric and his team to do a little digging into it and looking at it. Overall, we are up on residential sales, so that stayed consistent throughout the year. Same thing with basically commercial sales. It really hit us where the lack is the large industrial customers, are not necessarily industrial, but our large primary metered customers. And that's where we saw the fall off. So namely, I think we can account a lot of that to the economics of what's going on in the world right now. A lot of our big customers are related to automotive sales. We know there's a slump in that going on. So it appears like from January on, we've had some of our larger customers just not using the power we anticipated. So that's something we're going to look at and make sure going forward, do we need to tweak the budget or any of that kind of stuff? But we're kind of seeing that trend, not just be a one-off month, that the last 6 months that sales are down in that area alone. So to me, that's one thing I would have expected. That blue line, you can see the shape's relatively right. We're just a little low. So we'll be digging into that a little bit more. That average retail rate, obviously, the more kilowatt hours you sell, the cheaper per kilowatt hour it is. So that goes there. Financial, if I go to number 5, cash on hand, you can see we're a little bit lower than expected, even though we did make a little more money in sales this year. Of course, we had to buy that power that we sold, but we also did purchase the building that was not budgeted. So all that kind of makes sense. So that was the kind of the big things I wanted to point out. If you scroll up Austin, and I would recommend everybody takes a minute to look through the net position. So page 6 of 51. So this is year after year. So you can see as you kind of walk down through, our total assets increased from 105 million to 108 million over the year. One thing I can point out is our mitigation fund. So that's the money we have reserved for Harbor Island cleanup, is roughly increased $1 million over the last year. What does that mean? So over the last year, any money we've spent on Harbor Island, we have just expensed. We've taken it out of our checkbook. We haven't really started into that mitigation fund. I think we're going to have to start talking about making that change this coming years. Once we get further on, we'll talk about a little more in the meeting, what the alternatives are and what it's really going to cost to clean up Harbor Island. We can start drawing that fund down once we know for sure what that liability is going to be. We've kept basically our asset retirement or mitigation liabilities still around that $17 million mark. So we didn't bring that down a whole lot. You can see our bond is down. We've paid $2.5 million down on our bond, but overall we've increased our total position from $108 million of system to $111 million. Go to the next one, which is our statement of revenues and expenses. This kind of hits on some of the numbers I was talking about above. I know they're kind of small to see on the screen here, but residential sales, we were 1.3% above on budget. Commercial sales, another 1%. Industrial sales, we were under there compared to last year, and municipal sales were there. So all that boils down to we're about $1.6 million in sales above what we had budgeted. Once again, rolling back down, we expected it, and I kind of go down to the next one. You can see through the expenses where we're off, some of our expenses were very close to 0%. You look at distribution maintenance, we're down almost 10% on that. So that's basically the line department tree trimming. We're under 10% on that. Some of that is due to staffing and, some of the, just didn't need to spend the money we didn't need to spend. We didn't need as many tools, et cetera. To me, the more interesting thing as we go down, all the way down, is the increase in net assets. We budgeted 4.2 or almost $4.3 million, and we ended up at 6.6 million. So we're $2 million overall. When you start taking all our expenses out from all our revenues, we were $2 million over in retained earnings. Like I said, we spent an extra $1 million of that in a building, but also keep in mind, why is our cash down, is because our capital improvement plan was more aggressive than our plan of $4 million of retained earnings. Our capital improvement plan was more like $6 million, plus you have the building. So that's why cash is going down, because it's costing us more to put money back into the system. Our projects, we've talked about that at the last time we talked about budgeting, how things are costing us more. They're taking longer to get. Labor is very hard to come by. So we're spending more on the capital improvement plan, which is not shown here on this sheet, to get things done. Next page is the power supply dashboard. Once again, pretty straightforward. You can see we were this year for fiscal year 26, we ended up at 33% renewable energy, up from 27% last year. If you kind of look further down, you can see last year we sold, our power supply year to date was 280,070,551 kilowatt hours. I'm sorry, megawatt hours. And that we're at 277. So we're 0.85% down in sales this year. So relatively flat, but lower than budget. We expected to just see a little bit of increase, but really, like I said, a lot of that came from the industrial stuff. So once again, figure that was interesting to look through. And if you want to dig into more details, our sales dashboard is the next sheet, which kind of, once again, runs you through all the different things that are broken down. So this is a good one to spend a little time if you haven't looked at it for the year, because we're through the full fiscal year. So it's how did we do last year compared to this year. So just wanted to spend a few minutes kind of going through that. With that, I'd entertain any questions on the KPIs or any of the financial statements.
Rob, any questions for Rob?
33% on the renewable energy. That's above and beyond what we thought we were going to be.
Can't control when the wind blows and how much sun shines.
That's a good thing in this case.
Nope. So that's a good thing, right? So, and I did hear today that one of our last PPAs that we had instituted, the Hart Solar, they're still on schedule for later this year to come into commercial operation. So we should be adding to that portfolio even once again. So later this year.
Some of that we had some changes in buildings and things that drove some of that residential.
You're not picking up the mic.
Moved into the Comstock plan. I mean, a few of those buildings were just a little, had some business owner changes and stuff. I mean, it's.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fair to say we've seen it over the handful of years that the Dake building's a good example, right? That business was sold to a company in California. They really wanted the name and they shut down the factory here. Well, now it's going to get redeveloped. So eventually we'll pick up some sales because they're going to put, what is it, about 140 homes, I think it was, give or take. They're talking about building there. Well, 140 homes probably still won't equal the electrical sales of a big industrial facility, but it's going to help, right? But that's what we're kind of seeing a trend here locally in our service territory in Grand Haven is some of the industrial load is being shifted around or moved around. Some of it's moving out, new ones are moving in. West Michigan Custom Molding is one of them that I expect to start seeing some more sales. It's owned by Katie. That was a plastic injection molding place. Now they're going to be they're making the power legs for like power desks, that variable height desks. So that should start ramping up. So we see it down. Hopefully something comes back, but this year we had, like you said, a couple places people moved out. It's been sold. Of course, that transition takes time. So, good. we don't have one big customer that's gonna really, really hurt us. But when you aggregate them all together, we want to make sure that we're keeping that up, because if we don't have the sales, the cost per kilowatt hour or everybody's bill is going to go up per energy usage, right? So we want to be cognizant of that, of making sure that we can spread those fixed costs over more customers and more widgets. The more widgets you sell, the cheaper the widget is, right? So that's the way we need to look at it. So when we see stagnant growth or negative, that's stuff we need to dig in and figure out, is that going to be a long-term issue, short-term issue, and those types of things.
Next up is the general manager's report. Can I get a motion?
We got a vote on the consent agenda.
Oh, sorry about that. Danielle, would you call the roll, please?
Crum,
Yes.
Kolyak,
Yes.
Welling,
Yes.
Westbrook.
Yes. Next up is general manager's report. Can I get a motion to approve the 4 purchase orders totaling $575,088?
Make motion.
Motion and second. Yeah, second by Hoya.
Okay, the 4 purchase orders you can see there, the majority of them are related to the city of Grand Haven and Harbor Island activities. Derek is here to answer any questions if you have any on there, but I can give them a quick stab. The first 2 are relatively straightforward. Every year we have to do groundwater monitoring and reports, et cetera, for CCR. So that is the HDR portion is the first one. The second one is the laboratory work of sending it to trace labs and having the water tested. Once again, that's done quarterly. We have to report all that information, file reports on, I believe, online and with Eagle, et cetera. So that's that work there. The fourth one there you see is for the RAA CCR communications. So the RAA, so I'll probably mention it later, is remedial alternative action plan or something like that. We like acronyms, but it's the plan, the different plans we could take to clean up Harbor Island. So that's our portion of the communications for that. So in your packet, I gave you the whole quote for all the communication work, which was $70-some thousand, but of that, $28,000 is the BLP's responsibility. So, we've been working with the city effectively between Derek and our staff and the city manager and myself, making sure that we're looking at whose responsibility is what and splitting things up as needed. And this is one that is being split between the board and city council.
Yeah.
Else to add, Derek?
Yeah. Any question you might have on that? Rob nailed it. The RAA remedial alternative analysis.
There you go.
So you're going to see that here in August, and then how there is a legal requirement for the BLP and the CCR regulations to engage the public. So we split that out as best we can at HDR. Look at it, say what do they need to do, and then what do we want to do as a city and how we want to reach out. That's why our portion's a little higher to engage that public with some surveys, some online open houses, and but yeah, the legal requirement for that was just a town hall meeting, and then we can't make any decisions for 30 days is the requirement. So yeah, and then the other thing, pretty straightforward was the other 2, the difference, because now we're going to pay the lab fee separately, saves us at least 10%. So as they've grown and we have more wells and long term, we've got now a history. We'll go ahead and just take those on and save some money. So, and HDR was on board with it. We got the laboratory to agree to extend their pricing to us. They have a little more clout than we do, so that was a good thing. So yeah, just some operational changes to save some costs.
Said that RAAA would be available in August. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, your guys you're gonna get it here first or second, well, probably second week of August, third week of August. We're gonna talk about how we dissect that as a council and a board and as staff. So yeah, it's coming very quickly. So
I'll add to that. I was going to bring it up in other business, but as we're talking about it, the RAA, kind of start looking at your calendars for the week around August 18th and 19th. We're thinking that might be a good week to have a joint council BLP meeting to talk about Harbor Island. So that'll be a meeting where we'll get our our legal team, engineers and everybody together to probably go into closed session to discuss this stuff, to make sure we've got all our questions answered. We've crossed every T, dotted every I, because we don't want to put bad information out in the public. So that's the way to get in, make sure we've answered everybody's questions, talked about everything, get the legal analysis of what's going on, all that kind of stuff. So that we can be ready to go for these town hall meetings and make sure that anything we're giving out is everybody's comfortable, understands it, et cetera.
So,
More to follow on that. You'll probably see an email with probably a survey or something like that. But right now we're looking at the week, either August 18th or 19th, maybe as a date for that joint meeting.
council has a meeting on the 17th. You have a meeting on the 20th.
20th. So I figured we split the middle, we might be able to keep people in town in the norm instead of being on vacation.
Sounds good?
Derek,
Yeah.
do we have any idea on what the remediation is going to look like after this is all done?
You're going to find out here again on August on the remediation alternatives that HDR will provide. I think there may be a handful of them, and they're going to make a recommendation on which one. And so, and there's going to be budget numbers that come with that, and and the larger scope. It won't have every detail. They haven't designed each one of them right down to the nitty gritty, if you will. But you're gonna get it and we're gonna figure out which one we'll choose. Again, HR will come with a recommendation. We think this is, the least impactful, the most cost effective, the long term, all these considerations. So yeah, very soon with budget numbers.
Are they also putting together who's responsible for what as far as the remediation goes?
HDR is not in the business of being determining who's responsible. Our attorney will give us some advice as to who and what. But over the last 3 years, we've as a council and you as a board have decided to split things this way. I'm not seeing any major changes in that coming from the data that I've seen today. So.
Yes. I think the way I'd phrase that a little bit is, all the research we've been doing and reports we've been getting is all leading up to, now we have the data. Now we know what our options are and how we can, eat this elephant, right? And, there's multiple ways, and some of them are, I'll say, in my opinion, pie in the sky, and some of them are really doable. So we need to go through, vet all those out, have those, and then have that discussion obviously afterwards with the public, right? So they understand and get their buy-in and understanding. But also that high level budget level, hey, if you're going to do this, we think it's in this magnitude, something that we can start budgeting towards.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I think once they start getting into the design phase, we'll be able to, I think at that level, we'll be able to have an idea what portion is CCR related, what might be PFAS related. But we won't have final numbers until obviously things go out for bid, which you guys understand, right? But we'll be at the point where here's our concept, here's our preliminary design, here's the preliminary budget. Then we can go from there and start getting into the real design phase and real cost estimates. And that's where we really could get to the details of how we split the dollars. But once again, I think everybody's operating under the same opinion of CCR stuff. There's no doubt. Yeah, that's a BLP issue, right? We got to take care of that. If it's the former city dump, how do we deal with that? If it's something commingled, let's talk about it and how we deal with that, right? So each one of these options, which there's going to be, 4 or 5, something like that, probably options coming back, will have stuff that you could clearly from today go, well, that's a BLP issue, right? And there'll be certain things where you go, that's not a BLP issue. And then there're probably going to be a lot of things we're going to go, that's a Harbor Island issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to work those things through as we go.
Yeah. And what we found over the last few years as we've done all the sampling and locating where the contaminants are that we need to address, a lot of it does overlap, but not all of it. So there are some clear areas where, like Rob said, it's very clear. And then the big area is where it's both there, right? We operated on the island. We both did. So the city and the BLP. So we'll figure those out over time.
Well, I think you said it well today. I mean, we talked about splitting the bill on the public engagement, and you recognized a larger component was going to be from the city, not the BLP. So, I mean, we're having fair and equitable ways that are of splitting the bills, and I hope that continues. So
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Stay down that.
Sure.
Thank you, Derek.
You're welcome.
Did you have
Yeah,
anything?
thank you, Derek. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, it's not easy. I
No.
know, but appreciate it.
No
Okay.
problem. Well, thank you for your support.
Okay, Danielle, would you call the roll, please?
Crump,
Yes.
Kolyak,
Yes.
Welling,
Yes.
Westbrook.
Yes. Item B, MERS 2025 report highlight.
So as promised, we talked about it multiple times during budgeting and throughout, different times throughout the year, that we get a MERS report or our pension report once a year. And it's always 6 months lagging. So this is dated, the report was based on an actual report from December 31st of 2025. So I went through and read through this, 20-some page report. And I pulled out the things I thought were of interest or, really the juicy tidbits and not getting into the weeds. So I'll start right down the top where the percent funded in 2024, we were 93% funded. 2025, we stayed right there at 93%. What are we budgeting and how are we funding this? So that kind of goes with the next two lines in the little table there, which I apologize, the table's a little blurry. In 2026 fiscal year, our budget was $700,000. We put $700,000 into the fund. MERS was requiring 417. So we put almost $300,000 more than what we needed into the budget there. We kept that number the same for 2027, another $700,000. And why do I think that's appropriate, or where are we coming up with that? Is I don't think it's ever really wise to put in the bare minimum when you're talking about planning for the future or investments. But you can see what they're saying in this table here is beginning fiscal year 7/1 of 2027, they think we should be putting in $438,000. 28, they say 554, 29 is 514, so on and so forth. So if we keep putting in more than the minimum, we should keep ourselves in a good position. You never want to make the minimum payment. We want to make sure that we're keeping that funding percentage high. One thing to note is all of these are assuming that they will have a 6.79% rate of return. So that's their actual report is based on that rate of return. We'll talk about that a little later on. So in December of 2024, our market value was about $43 million. In 2025, it had risen to about $47 million. So pretty good return over the last 12 months. And so we talking about that rate of return, and that's why I said we talk about it a little later. If you look at our actual rate of return for the last year was 15.45% or almost 15.5%. Over the last 5 years, it's been 7.26. And over the last 10 years, it's been a little over 8%. So I said before, up above, all the calculations are doing is saying we should be putting in $400,000 to $500,000 a year and getting a rate of return of about 6.8. In reality, we're putting in $700,000 and getting a rate of return, north of 8%. So my analysis of that is good. Let's keep putting in more than we should, the minimum, and we're getting a better rate of return than we should. So we should be pointing in the right direction. But as I will warn is if I pull the numbers out today, well, shouldn't say today. I didn't look at the market today. I have to apologize. I looked on Tuesday. And you can see on Tuesday compared to December 31st, we're up, I think, almost 9% in the last 6 months or 7 months. So the problem with all these actuarials is they are a snapshot in time. So chasing a number of X percent or X dollars, whether you look at a contribution or you look at it a percentage wise, it's always going to matter when you take that snapshot. If you took that snapshot instead of December 31st, you would have taken it in, March when the Iran war kicked off. The market dropped. So if we were taking that snapshot then, I'd be going, geez, we really need to put more money in. We look terrible, right? So the best news anybody will give you when you're doing investments is what? Plan it out, stay the course. We're well above where most municipalities are at. We're in good shape. I think just stay the course would be my recommendation. So with that, I'd answer any questions you have on it. I know, but like I said, I tried to take what I thought were the high level takeaways out of the report. And if anybody would like the report, obviously I can forward that to you as well. If you need something to fall asleep at night.
Thanks, Rob. Any comments for Rob on the MERS reporting or the values or discussion or?
Oh, looks good.
Come on, Todd, you gotta have something.
Well, you're doing a good job. I remember back in the, 2020, we're putting in bulks of money just to, get us up to the 90 percentile. I mean, like I said, when you compare us to other utilities and, forms of government, we're doing extremely well. But there again, 95, shooting for a 95, in 4 years. At this point, I'm like, why aren't we shooting for 100? Why aren't we shooting for 98%, 100%? Nobody has a crystal ball, like you said, and the market fluctuates. And I just hate to see us someday having to put in so much revenue just to keep our heads afloat. I mean, we're putting in, big chunks of money.
Yeah, you're right. We put in 4 million, then another time we put another million in. So we put roughly $5 million into this program to get us where we're at. And I would tell you that that was extremely wise. And that's because of the actions back then is why we don't have to take massive actions now. And so we talked about when we were doing budgeting, and we even talked about, so my goal setting is in our strategic plan, right? We talked minding all liabilities, right? We need to be mindful of Harbor Island. We need to be mindful of this, and plan for those things in advance. And I think once again, my predecessor did a very good job of recognizing this and putting money in. He did a very good job of thinking of a good way to slowly fund our mitigation fund, by $1 million a year, which is a 0.35 cents per kilowatt hour on our customers to make sure that we have that $18 million now to take care of these Harbor Island issues. So to your point, is you thinking about this stuff in advance and having these conversations now should save us from getting our nose out of joint in the future. And that's the key. So
Just to point out, the employer contribution this year is, 438,000. So when you say we're going above and beyond at 700, you're 200 and something $1,000, above and beyond. And that's my only point is, could that number be a little higher?
I can do anything the board likes to do. But like I said, Todd, good points. I don't mean to poo, but I think if you look at these, and I think you and I had a conversation the other day, is I pulled up our monthly balance sheet, and our accounts receivable is over $400,000. So our income for one month is what they say our annual contribution should be. So, and you put it in perspective, it seems like a big number, and it is. It's nothing to joke about it, and these numbers can get away from you in a hurry. But when you think about that, like I said to you before, if you were told your whole house payment for the year was what you made in 1 month, would you think you're in a good position? Would you really be worried about your mortgage payment? No. And that's when you think you gotta put it to the numbers that are easy for you to wrap your head around, or put it in a way to look at it. And for me, that's what I have to do, is I think about it, because if you're asking me to write a check for $400,000, oof, that hurts, right? But if you put it in perspective of, well, but you make $40 million a year. Okay, well, then that's not such a big deal, right? So I think that's when you got to start looking at really, look at the liability there for 2025 and that table that's just up a little bit there, Austin. So right there. So you can see the liability for 2027, they figure we need to have $50 million, 50.2 million. And they're saying they think we have 46.9 million, basically 47. So out of $50 million need, we're $3 million short. It's a good position to be in. So.
Oh, I like seeing it in the 90s.
Yep. And I think if we start seeing it slip below that 90%, then we need to start talking about what are we doing wrong, right?
There's been a talk, I think, at one time, you don't have a crystal ball with the markets and all that, but of trying to, would you slip in like a minimum there? If you start seeing a forecast, or something like that out there.
Yeah, I would think if we start seeing our funded percentage slipping on us we we can't explain it as a flip in the market or something like those lines, or, like, once again, when COVID happened, I wouldn't want to benchmark against COVID, right? I wouldn't want to benchmark against the beginning of the Iran war. So if I look at that graph and see there's just a blip in it, okay. But if I look at that graph and I start seeing this is a long-term trend, that's when you need to address it. And that's why I have these conversations once a year to really do this checkup and say, are we trending in the right direction? Are we going the right way? That's what's important. And if we're in the good funded range and we're going the right direction, that's what's important. If we were in the good funded range and we were going in the wrong direction, that changes conversation, right? If I'm low funded, even if I'm headed in the right direction, we're in that 80% funded range. Well, that's not where we're really comfortable at. Other people maybe, but as the Board of Light and Power, we're not, right? So we have to start making a plan. How are we going to come up with funds to increase that funding? But today, I think we're in a good position.
So does our third-party audit always comes in with a gold star. So, this is a Todd Trum worry, not a board, not even a worry.
We'll make sure
Worry's a strong.
we'll make sure the pension stays viable.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. I appreciate it. We talked about this at budget time. You committed to doing, nice to see him flat, not down. And
Yeah, and I think
I'd love 100%. I'd love 100% too, but we committed to 700, and it's showing it's doing, remain consistent year over year with the amount we're funding. So
we will let you know, and I plan on doing a report similar, or maybe even probably a little better next year, because I kind of threw this one together pretty quickly. But yeah, keep you guys abreast of what we're seeing. But it seems to be, like I said, good fundage percentage, trending in the right direction. We're plan your work and work your plan.
We're in good hands.
Yeah.
right. Next item on the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the Grand Haven Board of Light and Power fiscal years 2027 through 2031 strategic plan?
That motion.
Second.
Motion by Welling, second by Poliak. We've looked at this. I think this is 3 times, finishing touches. Any comments, questions before we move for a vote to approve?
I thought bringing in that Steve was really helped out in the process, and I think it was good to have some outside eyes who deals not just in the industry to kind of give his insight. I really appreciated it.
Steve is, as you can imagine, highly sought after, and we were lucky to be able to get him to come here. I think is one of his last hurrahs in this foray. He's kind of trying to pass the torch and move into, I'll say, according to full retirement, but he seems to be busier than he's ever been with volunteering around his community and other organizations he's been volunteering in. So he'll be missed as a good asset for a lot of utilities, but I think the city of Colorado Springs is gaining a great person for their nonprofits in the area to help out doing a lot of things in that community. So that said, like Mike said, we basically have cleaned it up, took your feedback in, did a little formatting. It did give you a printed out version so you could see it in front of you. And like I said, took all your comments from last time and tweaked it. So I'm excited about it. And I think the next step from here is we got to start taking these expectations that are in here, if it's approved the way it is, and start bringing that information back to the board and, benchmarking, et cetera, those type of information to you. So that was one of the things we talked about at our staff meeting this morning.
There's a lot of nice pictures of the BLP staff and stuff in here, which I thought was pretty cool too. I mean, it's good document, good content, and I think it was a nice refresh. Looking for execution. And Rob, just, I guess on the report outs, future forward, if we approve tonight, I'm sure we will. Come back quarterly, pick one of the subtopics, report out on progress.
Probably I'm kind of envisioning a couple of things. One would be, maybe the first couple will be reporting out how we're going to get that information to you. We're working through some of that, and that's going to be on the staff level. So I want to report back on that. But then, yes, the cadence we'll get into will be quarterly picking a topic like we were doing and say, hey, here's the financial management tab. Here's where we're at. Here's what we're doing. And I think that personally, I think it also lends a good way for us to spend a little more time on something to even like today, we spend a little more time on the financial reports and the KPIs, dive into them a little bit more and saying, hey, here's the things that we're looking at and this is what we're doing. So that way, when you're getting those monthly reports, a lot of that information is already there, but make sure we're pointing it out to you and helping you digest the packet a little easier. So I think that's kind of how I see the cadence moving forward. And then, like I said, the next month will be T&D and et cetera. So we'll work through those quarterly like you talked about.
Vote. All right. Danielle, would you call the roll, please?
Crum,
Yes.
Poliak,
Yes.
Welling,
Yes.
Westbrook.
Yes. Nothing on the chairman's report, other business.
Yeah, I have a couple things I think is worthwhile and some on the agenda and some I was a little too late to get to. So first thing on there is the 130th year celebration. So council was gracious enough to approve our use of the waterfront stadium. So please save the date. It is, we're going to be putting this bill stuffer out. It is September and it's September 12th from noon to 4. And we're going to have bounce houses, touch a truck, yard games, family friendly event. We want to bring family down there to celebrate our 130 years with us. We're gonna have a line worker pole top demonstration. Chairman Westbrook got to go back and see the guys were working on building it today to kind of stay out of the smoke environment. We kept them inside a little bit today and building some cut down poles with some transformers on it so that people can kind of see a real demonstration of what's really on the top of the pole and how does things work. There'll be some BLP swag, hot dogs, ice cream. So mark your calendars. It should be a fun day for hopefully good weather and the family to come out and celebrate 130 years of service to our community. Other news for you to keep in mind is back to Harbor Island. A few months ago, we approved PO for the engineering work for the North Channel investigation or cleanup. So that work process was approved by Eagle. So one check mark there. We are waiting on the wetland division to issue a permit for that. HDR in the city will be going out for bids for the contractor on that this month. So probably in September, you'll see that contract coming to you to approve, actually getting that work done, hopefully starting this fall. If we can get, it's all contingent on the Eagle wetland permit. So that's like a crystal ball in itself. But once we get that, we're trying to have our ducks in a row that we can get started sooner rather than later. Take advantage of maybe some fall weather and decent water levels to be able to get out and do that work. Another update on the community solar project. We have had 15 customers make commitments for 25 shares of the project. So we have obviously put that information out. I've been on local radio stations. We have radio station commercials going on, Facebook, social media type posts, our website, bill stuffers. So we are trying to hit everything and anything and everything to get that information out to the community. And we are seeing that stuff starting to trickle in. We are getting questions. And so the word's building and we're starting to see some movement on that.
How about the Sustainability Energy Commission? I mean, I know they were going to help promote and
Yep.
advance some of the sales. Any feedback on how that's going? I wasn't sure.
Well, we don't ask people when they come to us, how'd you hear about us?
Okay.
We don't do
Fair
that
enough.
survey,
Fair
but
enough.
I did go to the SEC meeting and gave a presentation there, handed out, went through the application process, how it's working and all that kind of stuff. And some of them did come and I brought them a stack of stuff like flyers and information on it. And they did come by and get more. So they said they were going to go to the farmer's market and hand out information. So they're trying to partner with us to help push the narrative as well to get that information out to the community to hopefully get this project off the ground.
I think at the 130th, I'm sure too, right?
We're actually going to the farmer's market at the end of this month.
You are,
So
okay.
we'll be there. We'll have a booth and Rob will be sending out a key accounts email next week to hit the large industrial customers, large commercial customers.
One more thing, just to bring everybody aware of, as you can imagine, I'm going to Can I share the screen, my screen here, Austin? Let me. So I'm gonna steal some of Eric's hard work here that he sent out to our operators here, but as you can imagine, this last week we've had 100-degree temperatures in Michigan, which they're not unheard of, but it's hot. You can imagine we've been stressing the grid. So I just brought some pictures of things off the websites to kind of show what we're dealing with here. Not meant to frazzle anybody or worry anybody, but let everybody know that, you know, we are seeing, as we've talked about, the reserve margins for generation have shrunk over the years with retirements, that we are seeing these issues more frequently. We got to a max gen alert, which is the last step before they start pleading to the public, please conserve energy. The step after that is load curtailment. So load shedding. So we were getting up there. Luckily, we did not meet what their peak demand was. We were actually under what they forecasted. So you can see on this first graph here, the green line is what is the available capacity or what generation is out there. The blue line is what we were using or what we were forecasting. So you can see those lines are a little closer than what we like to see. So at the time, once again, here's some more screenshots. Forecasted demand was 122,000 megawatts. We ended up hitting about 120,000 megawatts. So we were a little less than what they estimated, but you can see that little speedometer, we're definitely in the orange. Emergency power actions required. What they're they told everybody is you have a generator, run it. So they sent out a max gen alert, which means get it running.
They don't care what it is, just
Get it running. And the interesting thing about this is, and this is in the next one, as you can see, we have a lot of imports coming into the MISO footprint. So we had 13,000 megawatts coming in, which is, as Eric said, the largest he remembers and I can remember seeing coming in. He studies this a lot more than I do. And you can see that the cost of power in this graphic, well, I'll show you a better graphic to show more of it. It was very high, 432. Typically you're in that $40 to $50 range. Well, what's interesting is the mix down here below is you can see when does this green here, that's that little sliver right over here. Not much wind. So believe it or not, when it's hot and sunny and 100-degree weather out, we don't have a lot of wind. So the wind didn't show up. Solar showed up big time. That's good. Well, when did we get these alerts? About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock. Why do you think that is? Sun's starting to go down and we need generation to come in and fill that hole. So we're seeing these grids things swing. In the old days, it used to be 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Factories are running, air conditioners running, all that stuff's happening, right? That's when the peak is. But we had all these, I'll say, base load generators, right? They were just running. So it was just, do you have enough generation to hit there? Well, now if they're being intermittent or weather dependent, right? Sun goes down, the load's still there, which, how about you? But when I got home at 5 or 6 o'clock, I was really glad my air conditioner was running. I was really glad that I could cook some food. So the load doesn't necessarily go all the way away, especially in the middle of the week, right? Because a lot of plants are working second shift or third shift compared to regular nights and weekends, right? So as that transition of the generation mix is happening, these are some of the consequences we have to deal with. And the consequences, I'm not trying to make it sound negative. It's just action, reaction, right? So the more solar we put on, the more when solar falls off, you got to fill that hole with something else. Because I can't flip my switch and tell the sun to stop shining. Just like I can't tell it to shine when I need it if it's not there, right? Or the wind. So it's just things we're looking at. So how does that translate to dollars? Well, here's a screenshot from the MISO grid. This is at MISO time, 16:15 military time in the afternoon on Wednesday, the 15th. The Michigan hub was basically $750 a megawatt hour. Like, can you look at this? It'll be in that $50-ish range on a normal day. So that's why we do bilateral contracts. That's why we do that hedging we talk about in that report I give you every month from MPPA, where I talk about we want to be between these two dashed lines. That's why we do that. So we buy things in advance so we can avoid the risk of this. So yes, there's days when this is showing $15, right? And I could have saved a boatload of money. But I'm also playing the risk, right? So we want to be stable. We talk about that three-legged stool and stability. That's what you're gonna hear from us all the time. Stability, stability, stability. Rate stability. Sustainability, stability. All this stuff has to be balanced out to keep things stable. So that's what we're trying to do when we do this. So we were able to avoid some of these costs, but we do still have an open position, right? That top 2 or 3%, if we're hedging to 90, 95%, well, I still have 5% open position. So I'm only 5% exposed to that. So that's why we do the hedges, why we do the bilats, why we enter these PPAs so that we can control those costs and know those long-term. But like I'm showing you here is, I don't think anybody's surprised when you think about these hot summer days. So here's my little energy conservation pitch for everybody. Do what your mom or dad used to yell at you. If you're not in the room, shut the lights off. Don't stand there with the refrigerator door open. Make sure your windows are closed and sealed, maybe do a little insulation or caulking, by doing that, you can help everybody out. And more importantly, help yourself out because you're going to lower your own bills. So there's my little, stand on the soapbox and say, hey, do your part, right? It's like the ozone action days. Do your fair for cleaner air, right? Do your share for controlling the grid. So that's with myself. Any questions on that?
I've got one. I remember some time ago, we were talking about load shedding and, we talked about a load shedding plan. I mean, what would that look like in Grand Haven? I mean, do we have a load shedding plan, right? Like that we would.
Absolutely.
Disaster plan. I mean,
yep.
And
Austin just updated it this last week. So what it looks like is how
your power is going to be off from this time to this time.
How that will look is MISO will tell us everybody, not just Grand Haven, everybody needs to lose X percentage. So we have plans for 1%, 2%, 5%, and of course they just get more aggressive. And you're exactly that. It will be basically rolling blackouts. So we have identified spots in our system where if we need to lose 1 megawatt, you go here and that person's going to be off for, 2 hours? And then we roll to the next one, turn them off and turn these ones back on. And we have a way to roll around town and frankly, share the pain with everyone. We have had conversations with some of our larger customers and said, hey, if we notified you, would you be willing to do load shed so that we don't have to turn you off? Can we schedule it instead of forcing it, right? And so some of them are receptive to that. So we have some of those emergency contacts that we can do that. But that will be, when we get to that level, I'm sure you'll be hearing, we will be putting the information out. I'm sure Consumers Energy will be putting it. The state of Michigan you'll probably get like an Amber Alert on your phone would be my guess. Right. When we get to that level. I hope I can go the rest of my career and never have to do that. But as I said before, we have work to do as an industry, right? So we can't keep cutting the fat and not putting anything back. And so that's what you've been hearing. I was just at the national conference for APPA, and the topic of discussion around everybody was, how do we get generation online? We need permitting reform. We need this. We need that. We need more vendors, because some of these turbines are 6 to 8 years to purchase. So a lot of the topic was around resource adequacy. So that's kind of the big topic. Well, it's not kind of the big topic. It is the big topic in the utility space right now. So, like I said, I'm just reporting out to you. I'm not trying to make anybody nervous or scare anybody. It's just a reality of what we're dealing with, and we're seeing these happen more. We've always seen things like this, but we just see them more frequently now. So with that said, I'll move on to my last topic is we do have some, so here's my sales pitch for anybody listening, is we do have some job openings at the BLP. So we have a line worker, journeyman lineman position open. We have an apprentice tree trimmer position open. We're adding a staff there. The lineman is a gentleman. He's moving out of state, wants to move out west, him and his wife. And so congratulations to him. And we do have a position open for our Lynn's position, the finance officer. So if you know anybody, great place to work. Tell them to apply. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Rob. This is time to hear comments from the general public. Second chance. We ask each commenter provide their name and address as well as any affiliated organization they may be representing for the record. We respectfully ask that comments are limited to 3 minutes each, and Austin's going to keep time. Jeffrey R., you have the floor.
And go. My name is Jeffrey Miller. I live at 1120 South Harbor Drive. I'd like to talk about transparency or the lack thereof with the BLP. Fortunately, Rob Shelley was hired as the general manager 2 years ago, and a news release went out to that effect, also stating his salary. A year later, the board in its minutes said that he exceeded expectations and received a 3% raise, even though inflation was only 2.7%. Just this last month, he said that Rob once again exceeded expectations and received a 3% raise, even though inflation is 4.2%. So Rob's salary now is $220,045. That is the second highest paid public employee in Ottawa County. If Rob exceeds expectations last year and this year, my question is, why is he getting a pay cut, essentially? His cost of living isn't keeping up with inflation. If you guys think he's doing such a good job, why don't you give him more money? I think it's deserved. Also, when you say he exceeds expectations, the general public has no idea what the criteria is. You ought to, when you're explaining that he has exceeded expectations, say this is the categories. You don't have to go into the specifics. I understand the decisions are made in closed door, but the general public should know the general criteria upon which you're evaluating the general manager's job. And if he's doing and exceeding expectations, why is he getting a cut in pay? To me, it makes no sense. Also, you put out a news release 2 years ago upon his hiring. Why not inform the customers, taxpayers, owners of the BLP what his current salary is now? He's paid as one of the top 5 general managers within the MPPA. He's the second highest paid employee within Ottawa County itself. Lots of responsibilities, managing things well, but nobody knows anything what's going on. And in my opinion, he's not being served well by the board because he's taken a pay cut since he was hired. And that to me seems unfair. So I think the board is a little negligent. I think the board is not as transparent. And I think the citizens deserve to know more about what's going on. That's pretty much it on that account. I'll be back next month for more. But seriously, if the man is exceeding expectations 2 years in a row, why is he getting a pay cut?
Jeff,
Thank you.
anyone else public comment?
Yes.
Hearing none, sorry, Jeff, you had your chance.
I'll bring a comb.
Any motion to adjourn, please?
Make the motion?
I'll second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Meeting adjourned.